speak before in person, so really stoked to have you here. Thanks very much for coming down all the way from Rotorua, and pass you the clicker, leave you to it. Cheers, Mel.
Just to start off, originally we're from Taranaki and farmed there for originally from Taranaki, and I went dairy farming when I was 16, and then when I was just over 20, met my wife Jenny, and we farmed for another 10 years there together, ranging from workers to management, share milking, from 200 cows to 1,000, high input, low input, irrigated, all conventional fertiliser and mindset. And then 10 years ago we got an opportunity to buy a farm in DairyAtiamuri with Jenny's parents and uncle and auntie, and we thought, oh yep, sweet, we'll jump into that. And it was a forestry conversion, and I've been out of forestry when we got there for 3 or 4 years, I think. Sorry, this is a bit old. This here's a bit old. It's a few years old, but so we've been doing 6 years of regenerative trials now, and 3 years of regenerative farming altogether. So just over 3 years. So it's quite a steep farm. Probably not great for dairy. Probably that's why it was in trees, but anyway, it was cheap at the time. So it's 340 hectares, 250 is effective or thereabouts. And when we got there, you know, it's pretty rough, thistles up to here, topsoil that deep, and I thought, oh, I knew conventional farming, I'll sort this out, no worries, I'll chuck fertiliser on, get them levels up and regrass it and we'll be away. And about 4 years later, digging a hole because it was dried up in about a week, grass was still dying, digging a hole, and you know, you got roots going down 4 inches, and nobody's happy with 4 inches, so I thought I've got to look into doing something about this, you know. So I was at a barbecue and there's a couple of hippie mates there, and I said to him, oh, I'm buying all this compost to build up my topsoil, and he was like, that's not how you build topsoil, you build topsoil down. And I was like, hold on a minute, you know, what are you talking about? It's not what I thought you built it up. Nah, I'll take you to see this lady, Christine Jones, and she'll sort of explain how to do it. And I was like, ugh. Nah, not really that interested in listening to an Aussie bird tell me how to farm. You know, and then it was Agrasea, the seaweed, and I was like, oh, that's, you know, not really into that sort of stuff either. But he talked me into it, and I don't know how, but he did. And I went along with him and his wife, and I listened to her for the day, and like Hamish, challenged most things she said. But a lot of it made sense to me because I never learned about biology and how a plant and microbes work together. And there's a big exchange system with sugars and minerals. And if you're putting on synthetic fertilisers, you know, the plants can just take it straight into their roots. So that sort of relationship's broken down. But if you can build that relationship, that's how you start making topsoil, through all of that happening. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I was a bit disappointed I'd never been taught that in 20 years of farming. Never ever, all the courses I've done right up through Ag ITO, production management, the rest of it. Never ever had I been taught anything about biology. So it was a bit of an eye-opener, and I went home and tried to teach Jenny all about it, and she told me that she thought I'd join the cult. You know, what the hell? So at that stage I thought I was just going to do the whole farm, but she sort of brought me back to reality, and we decided on doing a trial with the seaweed on about 30 hectares, but mainly having a conventional paddock and a seaweed paddock where we just use seaweed and no other fertilisers. So this was it here. So that was a conventional sort of what I've been using. And I was pretty worried that, because all my mates are dairy farmers, and they're all saying, oh, you'll mine out all your phosphate, and 5 years' time you'll be worried about, you'll be putting it all back on. So I was quite worried about that. So we did this trial. This is after 3 years. We're now 6 years into it. I won't give you that information now because I'm going to have a field day on my farm next year that you can pay to come and have a look if you want. But it hasn't gone backwards anyway. You can see the root depth after 3 years. Oh, was that 3 or 4? Yeah, 3 years. From 45 mil to 180. And this was gold for me because as soon as we got dry, it didn't die anymore. So that's a bit of resilience is what we wanted, because we're making all this money in spring and then giving it back to them in the summer, giving all our money back to the townies. So it was a bit of a, it was good to see a bit of root depth and topsoil being built. Balsam pea in the paddocks. You can see the green line, that's just where the seaweed's been put on, and the top line's conventional fertiliser paddock. And you can see there, it really does, that's 4 soil tests. And you can see how they sort of go up and down with the seasons. And you can see at the end of 4 years, that is, the Balsam P, which is all your available phosphate, is actually higher in that seaweed paddock than when we started 4 years earlier. So what that's telling me is the biology is releasing that. We've got a massive pool of phosphate in our ground. And I haven't put phosphate on our farm for 5 years now, and the Balsam P is still absolutely fine. So I was pretty happy to see this. I will say that when we first started this trial, when the grass almost died from withdrawals from the synthetic fertilisers, being pretty tough country on hills, out of forestry, I thought, holy shit, this is not going to work, in the first year. But it did teach me that to transition, you have to do things a little bit differently. So that was a good learning curve to start off with. Potassium, really similar. All the fert guys told me potassium's going to leach. Didn't. You can see, the root depth compared to the conventional paddock. When Christine Jones came back into the country, I was lucky enough for her to sort of become my mentor and come on the farm. And we're walking across the paddock and she goes, Miah, you should try putting a few different grasses in. And I said, I have. I put cocksfoot in. And she said, well, what about, trying to get above 9 species? Because, that's when quorum sensing really starts happening and your biology will fire up. And I was like, I don't actually know 9 species. I said, I just know ryegrass and cocksfoot and maybe fescue. And she's like, well, there's a lot more. So after explaining all of this, and I sort of thought, oh gosh, she sounds mad, but I'll try it, because what happened with the trial was what she said would happen. In our trial, our pH went up by 7 points as well, which was quite interesting because no lime was applied. So it went from 5.4 to 6.1. That's because biology likes to live in the pH it wants, so it'll change it. There's plenty of calcium in there, plenty of magnesium in there. They just manipulate it to live how they want to. So that sort of was quite interesting, because I didn't believe her when she said that at the start. So everything she says is sort of coming true at this stage. So I brought enough for 10 hectares of this 14 species mix, and I put in 1.5 hectares because I just couldn't do it. I was like, just can't do it. It can't be better than ryegrass. There's no bloody way, But I put it in, and then it was pretty average to start with. I thought, well, this is average. It's no better than ryegrass. And then I think Christine was back in the country, and she said, well, you've got to change your management to suit, what you're farming. So now you're farming microbes and multi-species pastures. We don't want to see it on a 20-day round. Maybe just try being a bit kinder to it and give it a bit of longer rest and recovery. So I did that, and yeah, that's when it really took off. And I think I went to a 30-day round, then a 40-day round, and she came back before our field day and said, "Oh, have you dug any holes?" I said, "No," just like usual, because my whole career I've never dug holes in the ground. Oh, which is quite bizarre because you're a farmer. But so we dug the hole, and the soil had changed colour right down to about 30 centimetres, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And Christine was like, "Oh, you must have burned a tree here or something, Ma." So then I would go over here, and I was digging a hole here and up the hill and all round, and then I don't know, 20 minutes later, she was like, "Oh, you better stop, or you have no bloody paddock left." Like having mum on the farm. So we had the field day, and I think we had about 130 people turn up. So there's a lot of interest. There's my boys digging a hole, which is quite cool. You can see on the left, I mean, the whole farm wasn't that bad, but that's the sort of, you can see underneath and the sort of the darkness of it. And that was a big aha moment for me. I was like, holy shit, I've got to get my whole farm like this. Because, when it goes dry, what's going to hold on better? And we could see roots coming out the bottom of there. So, I mean, I dug down to almost half a metre and still found small roots down there, and it used to be that much. And we've done this in two and a half years. And I can dig anywhere, another 4 years on, I can dig anywhere on my farm now, and it's at least a spade depth, apart from them real steep sidings. It's very hard to get that. So this is it. I left it for 40 days, which is pretty outrageous for my management. I used to be more of a 20-day sort of keep it short quality. But the cows went in there and they went up. And I was like, that's against conventional mindset thinking of how you make milk. Shorter grass, more higher quality. So that got me quite interested in longer grazing and better recovery and all of that. So then I went to 45 days, and that's Jenny there. She's not that tall, so. But 45 days and the cows went up again. I was like, holy shit, this multi-species stuff is gold. If I could be on a longer round, and then, if it went dry, I've got resilience. I took it a bit far here, I went to 65, but that's pretty much deferred grazing that I do, like that. And I didn't know much about high density grazing and all that, because I've sort of got into the last few years, and how to manage that, so when it grows back it's all quality, whereas this time, unfortunately, I sort of spaced them out a bit too much, and it came back eventually, but it was a bit woody, and I didn't trample it and all of that sort of stuff. So, but here's the cows in that paddock, 550 cows, 1.5 hectares. Normally I'd be struggling to grow 8 tonne in that in a year, and I reckon I had 8 tonne in 65 days. So really I only had to graze it once, and I got the same once or twice, So I was pretty out of it. And they were, after a couple of hours, they all sat down. They never used to sit down on my farm. They were always looking for some minerals or something. So the mineral content was up. I bricks tested this sort of multi-species, and I was getting a range from 12 to 18. And on my high nitrogen ryegrass, beautiful 3000 tucker, high energy bricks of 4. So you can see the difference in minerals and what the cows are getting out of it. Another thing we noticed, we'd go in there and watch them eat, is some of them would just go and pick on chicory for 10 minutes. That's all she'd eat. And others would be going for the grass. So different minerals in different plants, and what we've found out, this was 3 years ago, you can see how much dry matter's in there. Red clover, sort of up to your hip, and everyone told me that, if you grew it long, that the clover would die out, or get shaded. Well, that's, in a multi-species, that's just not true. It'll just grow through as high as the grass. So you can see here, in that trial, we took tests from the top 15 centimetres, then from 15 to 30 and down, and we noticed carbon in our multi-species paddock. You can see there total carbon 7.7% compared to a conventional, which was 6.5. And we thought, oh yeah, well that's quite good. From 15 to 30, total carbon was double what the conventional paddock, and that's just because the roots didn't get down there, you know. So now we're getting carbon down to 30 centimetres. I mean, I haven't been paid for it yet, but that might answer the question about burning diesel. When I can put carbon that deep into the soil, how does that relate to me being carbon neutral? I don't know. Hopefully Jacinda will work that one out and give me some money. And even at 45 centimetres, almost double again. So that was quite interesting. I mean, it doesn't worry me too much, as long as I've got deeper roots and my grass doesn't die. That's the main thing. And you can see the soil profile, top, middle, and down below, how the middle bit's sort of changing in colour as we put carbon into it. So the last few years I've been toying with grazing management. Normally in the spring we're sort of try not to go below 30 days, where it used to be 18. So 30 days, try and let your grass recover, and then going into summer we sort of stretch that out. It's pretty old school sort of grazing techniques to 45 and then to 55. But if you're getting some quality that you don't like, high density will sort that out without getting the topper out. So, you know, this looks like a winter break, but this is while they're milking. So normally, conventionally, I would just give them that whole paddock for 12 hours. And here I think we gave them 5 breaks in that 12 hours. And that just tramples that shit quality out. And next time, quality comes back. Other things that are happening on our farm, which I find really cool, is our animal health costs. Benchmark in Waikato, $117 a cow. We're now about 28, so saving costs there. Fertiliser costs used to be $170,000 per annum. Now we're running at about 60 to 70,000, so 100 grand there. We're using less minerals than we used to. Metabolics, we used to have 50 cows go down in calving. This last 2 or 3 years we've had 2 or 3. We have gone once a day last year, which was another mindset challenge. So our production dropped through that, but profit-wise we're still above when we were conventionally twice a day, which is quite interesting. In fact, the highest production we've ever done on that farm was our lowest profit, and the lowest production we've ever done on the farm was a higher profit, which is quite bizarre. But when your costs are so low, you don't have to do the production, and your cows, it's just so much easier. We don't have lane problems. We've had one staff member for 6 years. He's never going to leave. It's just like really easy farming, you know. We used to really flog ourselves 24/7, just fixing, putting the fire out, you know, animal health and that. And now we're just finding farming's quite relaxed. Obviously in the spring we're busy, but it's quite relaxed. We've got more time to spend with our kids, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, we're enjoying farming again. And I think with our young farm, it's only 15 years old, that soil's really young. It's only every year just unbelievable changes in structure, and we've never had a problem with water going in because it's pumice, so really porous, but we can now hold on to it a bit longer because usually it just go on and straight through. So water holding capacity is really key for us, and being able to grow that feed in front of you in summer. I'm hoping to get out to a 65-day round this year, and the plan is, if say we get to 45 days and you're getting a lot of rain, and it's recovered behind you to a really good level, you just stop there and start back at 45, and then you keep that quality. But if it's still dry, you just keep going on that slower rotation, and hopefully that'll get you back to there. You might have had some rain by then, but definitely good not having to feed out, in the summer as much. I know because all my mates, conventional, in the big drought we started feeding out a month later than everybody else. And we've also had comments that we get all the rain, which is quite interesting. Hey, that's always good. Bonus. But that's not actually true. We're just holding on better. Yeah, so, I think that's sweet. So, I think that's it. I don't know. Yeah.
Thanks heaps for that. You've obviously done that a couple of times before, so that's just a pretty seamless through your transition. So really appreciate that. Appreciate the data and the results and stuff that are coming through. It gives me a lot of confidence anyway. Questions?
Yeah, Miah, great presentation. Your enthusiasm certainly shined through, and it's wonderful to see. Thank you. Just interested in multi-species that you're planting. How are you drilling that into the soil?
Originally I was just conventionally disking, or roundup disking and then roller drilling, but now I just wait until my ryegrass dies in the summer and then I just direct drill.
Direct drill, okay.
And this year I really haven't done any because we had quite a good summer, so everything was looking good, but the previous year in that drought I did 150 hectares just direct drill and that came up really well. I would suggest if you're not doing a summer crop, I'd suggest doing wheat planting in the autumn, personally. Well, that's what's worked for me.
Okay.
It might not work for
And then that overcomes the moisture issue that one of the other speakers was...
Yeah, because I've tried several times in the spring and it's pretty average. So.
Okay, thank you.
Jules.
Miah, thank you. I can't listen to the presentation enough. You're one of the most entertaining and informative people. I'm curious, when you do your planting, are you doing any seed treatments? Are you using anything? Okay, good.
No, just bare seed.
Yep.
It's cheaper. And I don't have any, I don't know why, or what was the point of the treatment, I'm not sure. On a dairy farm, why would you spend an extra however much? I don't know.
Do you ever have grass grub issues?
Yeah, we had a lot of grass grub. I think in the first year we had, it might have been the second year, pretty much our whole farm died from that too. So we had plenty of challenges. Yeah.
But you're not treating for it?
No. We've still got grass grub, but in a manageable, you don't notice it. Like there's no deer focus. And it helps when you've got root deer.
So is your farm, is it all diverse pasture now?
Well,
Well, most of it diverse pasture.
yeah, most of it would be. I'd call it that. Yep. Some of it's come away just from where I haven't drilled as well, just from deferred grazings. And I use deferred grazings a little bit differently. I use it to get onto a longer round. So you go, maybe on a 30-day round, and you've got 4 or 5 paddocks shut up. You can use them to get to a 45-day round without having to buy in more feed. It's quite, I call it a snack paddock or whatever you want, and just give them that to slow your round down.
And when you're doing that, are you chopping and changing between the deferred and the platform, or do you go into the food for the whole time?
No, I'd give it what I usually do is give them a break in after milking and then cut their day paddock less so they get a bit of both. You slow your round down like that.
Are you growing more grass? Do you measure your grass per year?
I think it's pretty similar at the moment, but it's $100 cheaper, so that's good.
Yeah, down back there. Yep.
You gave a very convincing talk.
Yeah.
how many of your neighbours are seeing the light?
Well, there's one guy down the road who's doing his whole farm right now. There's another guy tried it out and failed, so he's gone back to conventional, which is fair enough. Yeah, so I don't know, all the people that call in, so I think you've had all the rain, they just don't understand it.
Hopefully your field day will help.
Yeah, that's right.
Any challenge with weeds?
Yeah. We're spot spraying thistles or raggies, but anything that cows away, it's not really classed as a weed anymore.
Alex?
Milk solids. We talked a lot about today around like pasture quality and like impacts on whether it's weight gain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did you notice a jump in that when you shifted?
No, pretty similar. Yeah. Just still more in the animal health sort of going up, like the cost going down and not having to deal with all them problems, you know. We carved 550 this year and 94% of them in 4 weeks. You know, just we used to do cedars and it's just easy.
It actually created a problem for you, didn't it?
But did create a problem because we ran out of grass real fast. When you carve that fast, you know, it's just ridiculous. We knew it was going to be fast, but until it happens on farm, yeah, it was a bit of a shock.
Actually, what are your empty rates like these days?
This year was between 7 and 8. 7 and 8%, which I think is too high for one today, but we'll get there. And when we started, it was 20% empty the first year, but it did get better. We got down to 14, so probably the average. Yeah.
So you're wintering on farm or?
Winter on farm, yeah. Heifers have been going off May and May, but they're coming back this year. We're going to milk a few less, because when you have your heifers out, they seem to want to drench them like every 4 weeks, you know. Oh, can we have some more drink? Can we have some more drink? Oh, there's nothing wrong with them. But, so we're going to bring them home, and we're pretty similar. We just drench if we have to. If we don't have to, there's less money going to the townies.
And so your only fertilisers now are agri-seed?
No, we use agri-seed, fish, fine lime, magnesium, trace minerals. I've used molasses. Yeah, whatever I think needs it, I'll put it on. But, yeah, I'm not afraid of putting a diverse mix in my sprayer, and yeah, you get a good response. And I do use a bit of nitrogen in the spring too. I used to use about 140 kilos, and we use about 20 to 40, just in that pinch. Hopefully get away from that, but I'll still use it if I have to.
Do you want to talk through how do you build feed into winter? So I know you went to a really good time, so
Yeah.
do you want to talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I've tried a few things. Last year we did a winter crop, multi-species. It was 12 different species, and we planted it, and then it didn't rain for 4 months. But we got 8 tonne out of it, and that was all right. It got us through winter. That was quite good. But I didn't manage that well. I think a lot of it comes back to your management. You can have a great crop and then still ruin the soil from how you manage it over winter. So you've got to be careful that way. And this year I've just drilled oats, radish and veg straight into eaten off multi-species paddocks. And then I'll see how that goes. I've done about 30 hectares. So I've never done that before. Well, I've done the oats before and they do good. So with the radish should be interesting. That should, yeah, and we buy in a bit of hay and silage to get through winter.
Okay. All right, any last quick questions for Miah before we jump to the panel? No? Sweet. Thanks very much. Might as well just jump up there if you want. Just before we crack into get everybody up, any bigger questions coming to mind that we want to throw up on the whiteboard here, just so that I can kind of run through them with some semblance of order. Yep.
So just at the moment with ewes, and we've had 70 mils of rain, it seems to be going straight through the ewes. They're quite shitty. I just noticed I've drenched my hogger land and they seem to stay clean. I'm just wondering why the users so dirty and if there's anything that we can do to help them to wind up a bit.
Cool, yep, this guy's going to capture that one. Any others? Can be questions that you've got about your farm or that you want to bounce off the panel. Yep.
Just trying to think, in terms of the catchments for you guys' farm, I'd be interested if any work's been done in terms of your nitrogen, your externalities or your outputs, have they got better than your neighbours? So if everyone adopted it, are there any numbers?
Yeah, we'll say that onto the panel too, because I know there's a couple of others that have got so much.